Hey, everybody. We're live. Come on into the fold.
All right.
So this is very exciting. I have taken a little break from Facebook Live because I really wanted to refocus my interviews on being a vegan. And Vegan Nation is the new interview series that I have, still as a part of my celebrity dinner party with Elysabeth Alfano. So today's first guest on the Vegan Nation specific interview series is Ethan Brown.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to be here.
And it is a thrill to have you here. In case you don't know, Ethan Brown, he is the CEO, founder, creator, fabulous innovator of Beyond Meat.
Thank you.
So first tell us, what is Beyond Meat? And I'm going to say, someone give me Beyond Meat so I can reach it. Oh, good. I'm
There you
eating.
go.
People,
So
you know that's what I do.
our-
I'm eating
our
here.
new sausages. And I love this product. I think we have the hot Italian and the brat here for you. Then we also have some burgers. But the basic principle behind Beyond Meat is that you don't need an animal to produce a piece of meat.
Yes.
And this is something that we've been working on for almost a decade. And the idea is that if you look at the core parts of meat, whether you look at the amino acids or the lipids or trace minerals or water, meat is predominantly water, so it's 65% water. None of those are exclusive to the animal. They're all present outside of the animal in actual abundance, right? So you can get all kinds of protein from plants, you can get fat from plants, you can get water from many places. So we're taking all of those resources and we're putting them into the architecture of meat. And we do that by basically running the material through heating, cooling, and pressure. That realigns it into the fibrous texture of muscle or meat. And that's how we build meat from plants. And so the efficiency of that is enormous. And once you think about replicating that out across the economy, you can see the benefits that can have from all kinds of things, whether it's climate change, human health, natural resources, animal welfare, et cetera.
Right. So for those of you who've maybe already tried Beyond Meat, and I'm going to do this right now, I've had the burgers, but I've never had the sausage. You're not just trying to be efficient with your resources, you're also literally trying to replicate the taste and texture of meat.
Yes, I mean, we believe that if we can be that group of people that separates meat from animals, we can make a massive contribution to not only our own species, but the rest of species we share the earth with. What do you think about it?
This tastes so much like sausage.
It's good, and you're coming from Chicago, so I appreciate that.
Sausage town. Oh my God.
I'll have to try one. Can I make sure this is
It's for real. Oh my gosh, it tastes so much like meat.
that's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
And I don't know if you can see this, they're really thick and big. Oh my gosh. So I have a quick question for you before I bring in a Southern man who eats meat, because he's never tasted Beyond Meat, and I want to see what he thinks of it himself. What is more important for you when you tell people this is not from animals, or this is efficient for the planet, or this is good for you?
One of the things that excited me about Beyond Meat was I'd never seen in my professional career the opportunity to simultaneously attack really four issues that I care deeply about. And you look at human health and the relationship between animal protein and whether it's heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. Then you look at climate change, and overwhelmingly, livestock is the largest contributor to the greenhouse gas emissions. Then you look at natural resources, whether it's water or fuel or land. 80% of our arable land is now used to raise food for livestock, either through grazing or through crops. And then animal welfare is another issue I care a lot about. So all four of those things, just by simply changing the protein at the center of the plate, not telling people not to eat meat, not telling people they have to start eating X, Y, and Z, but rather providing them meat, but meat that's made from plants, you can positively impact all four of those things. So that's what I get motivated about every day when I come in. In our office, in our labs, and in our factory, we have people coming from all different walks of life, and some tend to think about human health. Maybe they have an aunt or an uncle or a parent who suffered from some particular disease that could be avoided, or you have people who are animal rights advocates. So we welcome everybody. And try to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable. Not everyone who works at our company is vegetarian or vegan. We have many carnivores, but there are people who are saying, look, we want to reduce the amount of animal protein we're having while we still continue to enjoy meat, but plant-based meat.
Right. And personally, I'm vegan, but even if people cut meat down 50%, that would be an enormous impact on the environment and their own health and their own wallet, because in the end, your health issues are your financial issues in the end. But speaking about meat eaters, I'm going to take a slight back seat here, and I'm going to bring over, well, now we have sausages for you too. I'm bringing over a meat eater from the South. We're putting it to the test. So I'm going to switch places here with David. He's jumping in on the conversation. So David, Tell us where you're from, first of all.
So I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I went to school.
That's where my grandpa is from.
Really?
Yeah, he used to go to
Interesting.
Lookout Mountain. He went to
Yeah. Well, I worked on I worked on Lookout Mountain at Rock City.
Yeah. So he was born in 1901.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I didn't know him, but
Close, but no.
yeah, so close.
Yeah.
Just missed it.
Yeah, cool.
Well, all right, Mr. Meat Eater. So we have a sausage, which isn't even on the market yet. So lucky you.
Yeah.
And then we have a hamburger, which I didn't even bite into yet. So go right ahead and tell me
gonna go for
what
the
you
burger
think.
first.
Oh yeah, okay, go for the burger.
Just both look really good, but I'm feeling the burger at the moment.
Oh yeah, all right.
That's really good.
Oh, thank you.
That's really good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Try the sausage.
Well, yeah.
So I'm curious because it's been so long since I've eaten meat.
So that's the hot Italian.
Okay, so we got some
I know.
jalapenos
Yeah, so
on
what's
there
the-
too.
Difference between them again?
Hot Italian bratwurst.
Gotcha. I want to try the hot Italian. That's really good. That's
you.
what
Yeah, that's good, right?
I'm big on the spicier
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah, no, it's nice. What's cool about these is too, once you start to get the basic platform done for creating that fibrous texture of meat through plants, you can start to use other sources of protein. So this has different proteins in it. It has they both share in common pea protein, but this also has fava bean protein and some other things rice protein that I want to start introducing in greater volume into our product. So the consumer. My hope is that someday the consumer will go to the meat case and be able to one day have a sausage made from all lentil protein, the next day from camelina protein, the next day from lupin protein, et cetera. So their body's getting all these diverse proteins from different plant feedstocks.
So it's possible to use different proteins
Absolutely.
beyond pea. I wasn't sure if it was something particular that lent itself to making the burgers.
There's nothing special about peas. What's special about pea protein today is that it's been scaled up. And if you look at the history of the commodity market and particularly protein isolates, most of them were developed as concentrates for animal feed, right? And then they took the next step for human consumption. But that's why you see so much soy protein. That's why you see so much other forms of concentrated protein. But in the case of pea protein, it was largely scaled up for starch. People were using peas for starch,
what I
right?
thought, yeah.
And so this derivative stream of protein coming out of peas, they said, well, hey, let's monetize this. So they created businesses around that. But if you start from first principles first, and you say, okay, we're going to start using these fields and these plants for protein for direct human consumption through through plant-based meat, then you say, okay, what are the most efficient ways to grow that? And you start looking at the crops that are most efficient. And it's amazing how many there are that have really interesting sources of protein. The legume family is really rich in proteins, but there's also strange ones, like you got cottonseed that's protein. Tobacco leaf.
Interesting.
I wouldn't suggest you use it, but tobacco, tobacco leaf has protein in it, right? So once you start to say, okay, well, I'm not going to dedicate these fields to feeding animals, I'm going to dedicate them to growing protein for human consumption, it opens up a real world of innovation for the farmer. And that's one thing I'm super excited about focusing on in this next phase of Beyond Meat.
I'm bumping you out so we can get him back in frame.
Sure.
That is fascinating to me. So wait, what's your vote here?
Oh, those are fantastic. I'm more on the spicier stuff is my thing.
Right.
So I'm down for that. But both of those are really good.
Would you know that it's not meat?
Honestly, probably not. And what surprised me, especially the sausage, like both of them, I think probably so. But the sausage, really, like I would think that was sausage.
Great, thank you.
Legitimately.
Thank you.
Score.
Yeah, those are both great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think
Come on in.
a mantra with us for the company really is around, as good as these are and as much as we love them, we're continually working on improving them, right? And so, we want to get to the point where completely naked outside of any build or anything else around it, this is completely indistinguishable from animal protein.
So who is your market? Is it vegans who just kind of miss this from time to time, or is it really the diehard Southerners who like their meat and you're converting them?
Yeah, so I think it's for sure, I have a lot of respect for the role that meat has played in our culture and really in our evolution in terms of shaping who we are as humans. I don't think that there's going to be a day when we're not consuming meat, but I'm absolutely convinced that there's going to be a day when we're consuming plant-based meat. And so I want this to be attractive to the hardcore carnivores, to vegans alike, but we really go after the carnivore in our marketing.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
You really
absolutely.
go after the carnivore?
We appreciate very much the vegan and vegetarian support. I'm vegan, and so that's really my home, but we need to appeal to the mainstream carnivore, and that's really what we go after.
So that's fascinating to me that you're really going after the carnivore, and have they gone for it?
Yeah, I think we see, we have a lot of anecdotal information around that, but we see, for example, when we went into the meat case 2 years ago now, at Whole Foods first, and now we're in places like Ralph's and Pick and Kroger, et cetera. But when we first did that, we did some exit interviews of people coming out having purchased it. And we found that about 70% of consumers that were buying the burger in the meat case were self-identifying as carnivores. So we think it's a flexitarian population largely.
Yes.
People who are integrating one or more plant-based protein into their diet on a weekly basis. I think we're capturing that population pretty well, but we want to continue to expand it.
And is that population strictly millennials? I find them to be very open to not doing anything to harm the planet and also trying to be healthy and just being very
I honestly
around
say
it.
this a lot. I say thank God for millennials because they are thinking very differently.
Right.
Transparency is huge to them. Value-based companies are really big, and I think they vote with their wallet on these things, and so they're absolutely coming in droves to our product. And I think every time we make our product slightly better, we welcome more and more people into it because there's a latent desire for this to work. I think most people want this solution to work. Right? There are very few people like, no, I want to keep slaughtering animals. I don't think that's the norm. The norm is people would love to have an alternative that's just as good, right? And so we get a lot of that population, but we also get a lot of population over 40 who, let's say they go to the doctor and say, blood pressure issue, or they say,
Heart disease
is in your family or
diabetes.
whatever. And so that cuts across. And that was one of the first observations I had when we were forming the company was I had to demo a lot of this stuff at, let's say, like at Whole Foods. And we were on the East Coast at that time, so I'd go into Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and do demos. Women in particular come up and say, I can get my husband to eat this, and he needs to because of X, Y, and Z. And so I said, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. People want a solution here. They want to keep consuming meat, but they have problems with what's doing to their body, right? So let's create something that's better.
So this is very inspirational to me because I was afraid you might say, yes, people know that it's bad for them, which is obviously a physical problem. And then as I say, it's also a wallet problem. And they know that they shouldn't, but really culturally they feel, and this is a movie, The Game Changers, you guys have heard me talk about that movie, they really address the cultural sense that a lot of people are tied to meat, even though there's so many reasons not to be.
Yeah.
So I wondered how much you butt up against just I'm a man, I eat meat.
Yeah, no, you get that a lot. And one of the things that we do, and we've done for years now, is use athletes to promote the benefits of our product. So one of the early athletes who signed was a guy named J.J. Reddick, who plays in Philadelphia. He's made $23 million this year shooting a basketball. So he's a high-performing athlete, right? What he eats is very important to him, and one of the reasons he relies on our products is that they create that energy burst for him. There's the inflammation issue isn't there where it is with animal protein. He doesn't feel as full, etc. But you look at other people on our list. We have Tia Blanco, who's a terrific female surfer. We have a whole group of athletes that are out there promoting the fact that they're performing better on plant-based protein, right? And so I think that myth is one that is many, many, many centuries old. In the sort of time of Charles Dickens, one of the theories about why the lower class in England was so impoverished was that they didn't have access to meat, therefore they couldn't function as well, right? And so this is a big bias we have to get over. And, on the one hand, meat is a very nutrient-dense source of food, right? Maybe at that time when we didn't have technology to build it from plants, there may have been something to the fact that was maybe a preferred source of protein. But today, we have the ability to build it. So let's do it. Let's go ahead and build it. So you won't need it.
I couldn't agree more. And many things have happened. First of all, none of us want to live in the time of Charles Dickens, so we've all progressed.
Yep.
Also, the quality of meat seems to me, and there may be other perspectives, and I'd love to hear from you on Facebook Live, so tell me, since the time of Charles Dickens, we stuff them with antibiotics, we're sticking them with all these drugs, the conditions for the animals have gotten worse, smaller, tighter, the demand on produce has made so much more stress on the animals, and ultimately the people who eat that meat, they're the ones getting that stress.
Correct.
Right from their muscles into your muscles.
And we've lost a really important characteristic of meat, which is scarcity. Meat as a traditional in the role of the human diet, it was scarce, right? And
it was a rarity. You had it maybe once a week.
Yeah, and so when you turn this into something that's now every day and ubiquitous and maybe even 3 times a day, it has a profoundly different impact on the body.
That's right, on the body and on the planet.
Yeah.
I think the statistic is there are 7 billion people on the planet, and we kill 70 billion animals.
Yeah, the proportions are staggering.
And the amount of waste from the animal itself, because it's really not an efficient use of protein resources, et cetera, but then how much we waste of the animal.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about bacon and donuts and whiskey and, not to mention breakfast, lunch, and dinner, supersized, you got to think like, okay, when is
It's going to stop. Yeah.
Well, when is it going to stop and when is it going to explode?
Yeah.
I mean, so at what point do you say, oh, but culturally I'm aligned to meat, therefore I'll take the heart attack? Like, when do you say, like, oh,
Right.
wait a minute, that's actually isn't so smart for me?
Yeah, well, there's an enormous. I think about this all the time because of the business that I'm in. But there's all these. If you think about switching from, let's say, a landline to a mobile phone, there's very little emotional issue with that, right?
Right.
I mean, people don't defend the landline. They don't.
No.
But
right.
In the case of meat, it becomes very personal very quickly when you talk to someone. You say, look, I have a better source of meat for you. It's this sausage. It tastes great. It doesn't give you any sorts of nitrates or anything like that. Still, it's like there's something emotional about giving up the sausage that I had. And I think if you look at whether it's religion, where there's an enormous connection to animals and religious holidays and the Genesis and all these things. If you look at culture with Thanksgiving and
Yes.
the holidays and the Easter lamb and all that. So we have a lot to sort of unwind about how we think about ourselves relative to other species on the planet. And I hope that it can start with providing people with an alternative where it's not hard. Where it's just
Right.
absolutely easy to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And that's one of the things that I love is that you call it meat. You
Yeah,
still
you have
call
to.
it meat.
You have to, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's plant-based meat, but it's
Yeah.
still meat. And
Yeah.
you call it because technically it is? Is that
Yeah,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying? Or you call it because it tastes like meat?
No, I really feel strongly about this. So the Cattlemen's Association has sort of petitioned saying that they'd rather that we didn't use the word meat. In fact, are asking the government to stop.
petitioned
The
you?
Cattlemen's Association, yeah.
The Cattlemen's
Not us,
Association.
but the government.
All right.
And so, I take issue with that because I feel that, if you are insisting that meat come from, let's say, a chicken, cow, or pig, you're really constrained in terms of the number of solutions you can provide and what kind of impact you have in the world. If you shift your thinking just slightly and think about meat in terms of composition, those four things I talked about, whether it's amino acids, lipids, trace minerals, or water, if we deliver all of those things and we deliver them the same architecture as animal protein or meat, right? We literally follow the blueprint, put them together in the same way. It's the same experience for the consumer. They have all the same benefits. I'd be hard-pressed not to call that meat.
And what have they said to this? Because I'm curious about the backlash, if there is any.
Yeah, I mean, there's just concern. I mean, their argument, which I don't think is sound, is that it's confusing the consumer, and I'm pretty certain that the consumer can understand what plant-based meat is. We have faith in the consumer. Yeah.
Yes, and they are guiding you.
The consumer, absolutely. We listen day in and day out to the consumer. Our MO at the company is to release new products every year, get the feedback from the consumers. So you'll see things that are reflective of consumer behavior in this. So, for example, there's no soy, there's no wheat. That's literally from listening to the consumer, right? And so we say we're going to keep those out of our product, right?
No soy, no wheat. I was going to ask you why there was no soy.
Yeah, we've never had wheat because my dad has celiac, and I've always wanted him to be able to enjoy the products. But we've also stayed true to that because the consumer has said, we're overwhelmed with the amount of wheat we're consuming in our diet. We feel there's too much soy in our diet, et cetera. And whether valid or not, the consumer is speaking, and we have to listen.
I love that. I love that. And you know who else is speaking that I wouldn't have thought is that one of your investors is Tyson.
Yeah.
So if you doubt for some reason, if you're a meat eater and you're thinking like, oh, well, these two people are non-meat eaters, so they're kind of always going to be biased for it. Tyson, big investor.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So we began talking in 2012. We're not, yeah. And it was when we started our conversation with Hillshire, which was then acquired by Tyson. And there's some really forward-thinking executives both in Hillshire and also in Tyson that see this as a common mission to serve the world sustainably with protein, right? And it's remarkable how open they can be around the concept of where that protein comes from. And so if you look at China and its escalating meat consumption. You look at what could potentially happen in India and Africa, et cetera, as affluence gains there. We need to have a different solution. I think they're aware of that. And so, we have the Humane Society's investor and we have Tyson investor. And I think that's the appropriate way to approach this because it's not a us versus them. We don't have time for that, right? This is how do we work together to try to bring a solution to market that people are going to clamor for? Not they're going to feel obligated. We're not telling them to, put on a sweater or ride a bus to deal with, energy issues. What we're telling them is that we're creating something that's better, just in the same vein as Tesla saying, I'm creating a really sexy car you're going to want. We're trying to create products here that people really desire, right, and don't feel obligated to have. Yeah.
So I have to say hats off to Tyson because they are smart enough to say, I want to get on the future of food bandwagon. No matter what we're not interested in like splitting hairs. If it's
Right.
plant-based meat, we'll do it because that's where the money is and that's where the future is. I'm guessing, I should ask you, where is the future of food going?
Yeah, no, I feel very much that it's, I don't think that we're going to go to a diet where we're consuming, just plants and vegetables in their native form. I think as desirable as that would be, and I think that hopefully there'll be more of that. I think we are acclimated to meat as a source of protein. I think that we can absolutely shift that meat consumption from animal-based meat to plant-based meat. And I think that will happen. I think it's almost inevitable. And what has always shocked me, even before I got into the field, was I came out of the alternative energy sector, where the company I was with, great company, proton exchange membrane fuel cell company, spent $1 billion developing fuel cells, had investment in public markets, et cetera, from Ford and the like. And that's an important solution, is creating emission-free vehicles, for example. But what if you create a more sustainable source of meat for the center of the plate? How big would that be? So why not spend $1 billion? Why not spend $10 billion doing that? If the planet's health lays in the balance, why not do that?
Yes, and because as most of you know, much more of the emission gases come from factory farms than ever come from airplanes, buses, taxis, Ubers altogether.
Yeah,
so.
It's not well understood by consumers, but that is one of the key motivations for why we started the company.
It's another reason why I like this discussion so much, because the plant-based meat perspective is to really educate people. And I feel that the meat and dairy industry intentionally miseducates or undereducates people, because I don't think people really realize what the runoff is in their own water that they end up drinking, what the effect is on their own air from all the emissions, obviously the animal cruelty, which is egregious and quite covered up, and then they have their own sort of issue with their own health. So I think on a lot of platforms, meat and dairy aren't that forthcoming, because I think the protein myth is that you don't need as much protein as
correct. We do consume too much protein. But on that question of transparency, Biz Stone and Eva Williams from Twitter are some of our investors, and years ago, I can remember Biz talking about wanting to put cameras throughout our facility so that people could see at any time how their food is being made. And I love that idea.
Yeah, me too.
And we would ask, can others do that? And obviously they can't, right? And so we really feel open and don't have anything to hide.
They can, they won't.
They won't, right?
They won't,
We
right.
still have customers.
Yeah, yes, right. You're talking about the meat and dairy industry. Okay, well, I just want to make sure that I get to a couple questions.
Yeah, we do have one question from Diana, who asked for Ethan. What was the biggest challenge for you? What did you face when creating this idea and starting this company? What was the biggest challenge? Did you find any challenges with there being people you worked with to get this company started, since it was Meateaters?
Right. I mean, I think the challenges were somewhat routine in starting a new business. I mean, trying to there's a great saying that entrepreneurs tell the truth in advance, and you have to believe so strongly in what you're doing, and others will sort of doubt it, right? But you have to have arrived at that point, and so. There was other products in the market, but my idea and the motivation of the company was to really actually try to build a piece of meat directly from plants, not to mimic meat, not to make a soybean behave in some way or put enough sauce on it, but to literally understand the fundamental structure of meat and then rebuild it. And that's kind of at the time was a strange idea and one that required people to sort of buy in, right? And I spent my own money first and then ran out of it, right? And so you run into those kind of obstacles, but thank God we got some really important people to believe in this, and it really started not only with the friends and family, but Kleiner Perkins invested very early, a guy named Ray Lane and Amol Despande, and Ray is with me today, and he's probably my most significant business mentor. But he said, I believe in what you're going to do, we're going to fund it, and he's stuck with me through the thick and thin. And since then we've added an amazing board, but surrounding yourself with people that share your vision is probably one of the most important things you can do. Because if you have that, you can go get the resources.
Right. And Bill Gates jumped on board pretty quickly, didn't he?
He did.
And what was the reasoning for him?
So I think sustainability for sure, and his advice, which I think about a lot, was to go international as quick as you can, which we're doing. We're in Hong Kong. We're going to be in Europe. So we are trying to get into the markets where there's a real need.
Great.
And then second was to drop the price below that of meat as quick as you can, and that's something we are over the long run going to achieve. As the supply chain matures, we'll achieve that.
That's wonderful. Well, another question?
Yeah, we do have one
we got more questions. Okay, yes.
We do. From James asked, what do you think the future of insect protein is in the North American market?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, so I've looked at a bunch of different approaches, whether it's insect protein or lab-grown meat or our own approach, and I think they all have a place. There's, as I talked about on my board a little bit, Don Thompson, who's the former CEO of McDonald's, is an investor and a board member and just led our last round and also become a close friend. And his wife, Liz, and I were all talking several years ago about the innovation we have in our company. And we really invest in innovation. We have some of the best scientists from around the world working on this. But one thing we restrict them and say you can't use GMOs, right? And you have to try to use ingredients that people can identify with. So the red in our burger, for example, is beet juice, right? And the reason we do that is we want mom to be comfortable feeding her family our products, her kids. That no mom wants to be the first to experiment with a novel ingredient, right? And so we needed to really adhere to that. And so while I was describing all these things, Liz Thompson stopped me and said, innovation is good for my iPhone, but I don't want to put it in my mouth. And that really made an impression on me, right?
Yeah.
So we're using the highest science. We're using some of the most sophisticated technologies that come out of the medical community, for example, on imaging and things like that. But at the end of the day, we have to produce something that people are comfortable with. And I'm not sure that, at least the North American consumer, is going to be comfortable with cricket protein. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Even though cricket protein would be natural.
It would be natural, but is there a sort of cultural issue that you have to get around?
To eating bugs.
But I'm certainly not, I'm very focused on my solution, I think.
Yes. Yes. Well, so I would love a couple of tips for anybody trying to go vegan, or if you're maybe already plant-based, but you're trying to go vegan beyond food. Any lifestyle tips and any diet tips?
Sure. No, on lifestyle beyond food, for being male, one of the things you can get an increasing number of, basically non-animal leather shoes, belts, etc. It's great to support that industry and not the leather industry.
So agree.
And just on a general lifestyle thing about how we approach our business. I definitely come to the office eating to be successful that day, right? Like I very focus on my diet and will my diet sustain me, throughout the day and have high levels of focus, et cetera. And you can see marked differences in your productivity based on the food you eat, right? So, if you have a very carb-heavy breakfast, for example, you just don't perform as well, right? But I would often, for many years, I just had our chicken strips for breakfast, right? Because I really wanted that core protein and that feeling of kind of alertness that you get when you have a higher level of protein in the morning. So I when people are interviewing with me, I always say, approach the day like it's a game, like in the sense of like an athletic event, like, have you gotten your rest? Have you eaten properly? So you can get through and you can be intense throughout the workday. And I always try to give that advice to people because, that's all we got is your time.
Right.
And so, build your day around functioning at a high level as possible.
I love this, that we would all kind of organize our day like an athlete does.
Yeah,
you really think about your performance through the day and how food, it's funny, for the longest time I feel like we've had a disconnect about what food does to our bodies and what food is there to do for us. And I think for a long time we were thinking, it's just, I've got a taste for something, almost like an addiction for something. I just want to feed that addiction rather than sustain myself. We've gotten away from that. So I love that we think like athletes. I love the
work that is going on between the microbiome and the brain and what's the connection between the two. And they're finding all kinds of solutions to things, or at least contributing factors to things like Alzheimer's and others. And even I think about kids and learning struggles they have. And, could you eradicate or address some of that through the food they're eating?
I completely agree. Just getting rid of some sugar and putting some protein in its place seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're kind of winding down here. I want to just encourage everyone to go and subscribe because we are on iTunes. We're also on YouTube. Elysabeth Alfano, you can subscribe there. He's not going to go quite yet. Quick little questionnaire for you. Sure. Okay, we're going to run down some quick questions just for you, super fast. Okay. What item will we always find in your fridge?
Beyond Meat.
Good for you. Okay, what is your go-to meal? Like you're on the run, you're fast, you don't have a lot of time, something that you put together super fast.
Right, I'll have our burger.
Oh, burger. Okay, because it cooks up in like 6 minutes? That's what we did here. That's why we ran a little late, because we were flipping burgers, which was super fun. Okay.
I like grapefruit, by the way. I eat a lot of grapefruit.
Okay, well, I don't know if that counts as my next question. What's your favorite junk food? But if you don't have a junk food, because you maybe don't, knowing you, you could give me your favorite snack.
What is my favorite? There's a new ice cream that I really like. It's Not a Moo. It's a vegan ice cream.
Love that name.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I just had it. In fact, so I was at the creamery in Manhattan Beach, and I returned the ice cream they gave me, and I said, you guys got to talk to this company. So I'm going to connect them with it, because it is so good.
So good? Yeah, okay, I'll look for that. Not a Moo.
Not a Moo, yeah.
And hopefully they have salted caramel, which is my gig. Okay. Do you have any pets? And if so, do you think they're any any different than farm animals?
Right. It's a trick question. So yeah, we have a lot of pets. My kids love animals, and so we have turtles, we have a tortoise, we have a pig.
Pig? What kind of pig?
He's like, he was supposed to be a potbelly.
Everybody says that, and then they get them and they're huge.
He's ridiculous. In fact, my shirt is
Is your pig?
well, it's a W on the shoe for Wilbur. And I begged my kids not to name him Wilbur because I was like, every pig is named Wilbur. Please don't. But Wilbur it is.
No.
And our cat, we have dogs. So yeah.
How many dogs?
We have 2 here. And we have a farm back east. We have some dogs too.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Well, but do you think they're any different than farm animals?
No, and that's the thing. So this is one of the key motivating factors that got me into this business was as a kid. So I lived in Washington D.C. I grew up in Washington D.C. and in College Park, Maryland. My dad is a professor, and that gives him some time on the weekends and stuff to do things. And so he loved the country, grew up in the country, wanted us to have that experience. So we bought a farm on the western part of the state of Maryland. And it was supposed to be a hobby farm, but it became a dairy farm. So we had 100 head of Holstein cattle there. And so I would be up there on the weekends and during the summer and would just think in my mind about the difference between the two. And they were treated fine, but the difference between the cows in the barn or any animal and the ones that were sleeping in my bed as a dog, right? And so, but I didn't understand it at the time, but as I grew older and particularly read Darwin and the Darwin's emphasis on degrees of difference. So there's no absolute differences where, this animal belongs on this side of the fence and this one on that one based on some genetic difference. His whole point was there's only variations and small degrees of difference. And so the difference between a dog and a pig in terms of genetics and biology and so on, there's no difference that would justify different treatment, right? And that I think is sort of a scientific fact and one that our ethics have yet to catch up with.
Yes, I completely agree with that because pigs are even smarter than dogs, as we
They're
know.
pretty bright. Yeah, they're pretty
and
bright.
they're wonderful pets,
Yeah.
and so it's really a willful choice to
Yeah.
turn against
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
as we have. Okay. The next 3 are a little tough, but try to answer as quickly as you can in the sense that hopefully this answer will come just from your gut.
Okay, got it.
What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
So I knew this, but I didn't act on it every day. Is something that my friend told me once, which is don't live small.
Don't live small. So do you mean like go big or go home?
Yeah, just in everyday basis.
Yes.
Like just be who you are. Don't live small.
I love that. If you want to be known for one bit of change in the world, what would that be?
Well, I want our whole company to be known as the group of people that separated meat from animals.
I love that. Say it again.
Would like our company to be known as a group of people that, in an evolutionary timeline, separated meat from animals.
Amen. And this may be a little bit of the same question, but there's enough of a variation that we'll see how you answer. Do you know what your true purpose is in life? And if so, what is it?
Oh, that's a great question. I was raised Quaker, and so part of being Quaker is to have a calling, and so, first and foremost is about my family and being the best father I can be, etc. But this is my calling, what I'm doing now.
Yes, you feel that this is your calling.
Yeah.
Well, amen to you for living your calling
Thank you.
and for not living small, because we can say that this man is not living small.
And I'm not small.
And you're not small because he's super. How tall are you?
6'5".
He's 6'5". Okay, so he accomplishes it on many levels. I want to thank you for coming to my
having me.
house,
Appreciate
Ethan
it. No, it's
Brown,
a beautiful
Beyond
home.
Meat. Oh, thank you,
Beautiful
so
home.
very sweet. Thank you for making, oh my gosh, Beyond Meat sausages. Look how thick, tastes just like sausage. And of course, we already know that Beyond Meat burgers, they're everywhere, folks. You got to get them. Taste like meat and is so much better for you and the environment and for animals. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Subscribe. I appreciate you. Mwah.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Bye, folks.